Sit back and enjoy 2 hours of fascinating facts you didn't know. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Let's get started. People who sleep 5 hours are much more likely to get colds and flu than those who sleep 7 hours, regardless of their age or weight. Stress can cause hair to fall out almost 10 times faster than normal. This happens because it disrupts the natural hair growth cycle, causing many follicles to enter the shedding phase earlier, which can result in more noticeable temporary hair loss. School desks can have up to 300 times more bacteria than toilet seats. This happens because they are used for many hours each day and are not disinfected as often as bathrooms, allowing microbes from hands, food, and objects to accumulate. Approximately 1,700,000,000 hairpins are lost each year in the world. They are among the most commonly lost objects. Apple seeds do not produce the same apples they come from. Most apple trees are propagated by grafting, meaning the tree is divided and replanted to create new trees. In the city of Paris, France, sparkling mineral water fountains were installed so people would get used to drinking tap water and stop using plastic bottles. It is impossible to find an orange that grew naturally, since the oranges we know originated from a hybrid of mandarins and pomelos. Beneath the ice of Antarctica, there are around 400 lakes, and some of them could compete among the largest lakes in the world. Except they cannot because they are frozen. 12,000 years ago, there were animals similar to modern kangaroos that were the size of rhinoceroses. One of them was Procoptodon, a giant kangaroo that could reach more than approximately 6.56 feet in height and weigh more than approximately 440 pounds, and lived in Australia during the Ice Age. There are cats that are allergic to humans, but this is mainly due to perfume or soap that people use. They actually react to chemicals, dust, or particles that people carry on their skin or clothing, which can cause sneezing, itching, or irritation in sensitive cats. Clouds only filter 20% of the sun's ultraviolet rays, so you can get a tan even when it is cloudy. This happens because most of these rays pass through clouds without problem, so the skin still receives radiation even when the sun is not visible. Most railway tracks in Japan have special openings that serve as tunnels so turtles can cross safely. These passages were created after railway workers noticed that many turtles were getting trapped, which could also cause train delays and technical problems in the system. If you have this 1969 Hot Wheels Volkswagen Beach Bomb car in good condition, congratulations! You have the most expensive regular production Hot Wheels car in the world, which has been resold for up to $125,000. The idea that breakfast is the most important meal of the day is actually a myth. It was promoted by cereal companies to sell their products. In reality, it does not matter when breakfast is eaten or what foods are consumed, although it is still a meal that should not be neglected. After analysis, it was confirmed that meteorites that fell to Earth during a meteor shower in July 2011 came from Mars. The rocks discovered in Morocco were likely ejected from the surface of the red planet during an ancient asteroid impact. White truffles, also known as alba truffles, are the most expensive fungi in the world, costing up to approximately $1,360 per pound. They grow mainly in Italy in symbiosis with tree roots. They are so rare because they only grow in the wild, relying exclusively on animals for their dispersal. The Statue of Liberty is actually in the middle of an action to free herself from chains. This can only be observed from the air. Her right foot is stepping forward, and next to it, there is a broken chain. The first recorded cat name in history dates back more than 3,400 years in ancient Egypt. The cat was named Negjem, which means sweet or pleasant in ancient Egyptian. This name was found in a tomb in Thebes, demonstrating the affection Egyptians had for their felines. Although caffeine is not a standardized treatment for attention deficit disorder, some studies suggest that it could help manage the symptoms. In a study with young, hyperactive rats, the combination of caffeine and exercise improved behavioral performance and levels of serotonin and dopamine. However, the effects vary in each individual, and more research is required. Almost 1,100 million tons of food are wasted on the planet each year. Most of it comes from households, followed by restaurants and department stores. According to research, people spend around 60% of the time they are conversing talking about themselves. This number increases to 80% when it comes to conversations on social media. Babies have 30,000 taste buds, and not only on the tongue, but also on the sides and the roof of the mouth. compared to adults who only have 10,000 and only on the tongue. For this reason, they react in what could be considered an exaggerated way when tasting certain foods. There is a plant called Psychotria elata that has flowers known as the hot lips flower. It grows in Central and South America and is used as a medicinal plant to treat certain ailments, such as ear pain. It is also called flaming lips. The red part is actually leaves that look that way for a short time before giving way to the flower buds. Despite the First World War having ended more than 100 years ago, in France, more than approximately 992 short tons of unexploded ammunition are still recovered each year in regions where battles took place. The Tetris effect refers to when a person dedicates so much time and attention to an activity that it causes them to form patterns in their thoughts as well as mental images and dreams. This often happens to people who play too many video games such as Tetris. Ants can misinterpret the chemical signals left by other ants and begin walking in circles. If many ants join in, it can even involve an entire colony that remains like this indefinitely. This is also called the death spiral. One of the tests that Japanese chefs who want to learn how to prepare pufferfish must pass, which is one of the most potentially poisonous dishes, is eating a pufferfish that they themselves have prepared to prove that they are serious. All citrus fruits that exist are actually variations of 3 original fruits: pomelos, lemons, and mandarins. The others are simply hybrids, such as oranges, which are a combination of mandarins and pomelos created several centuries ago. During the Carboniferous period of the Paleozoic era, around 320 million years ago, oxygen levels were much higher than they are today. This caused many animals, especially insects, to grow to enormous sizes. The largest was a millipede of more than approximately 8 feet, but later oxygen levels stabilized and only small insects remained. The pet rock became so popular when it was first released that, within 6 months of its launch, Gary Dahl, the inventor, made $15 million. This unusual product, sold as a pet that required no care, included a box with ventilation holes and a humorous instruction manual. The idea became a cultural phenomenon in the 1970s and demonstrated how creative marketing can turn something simple into a massive success. Exercising increases productivity. Having a regular exercise routine can make you happier, smarter, and more energetic, and therefore help you perform better throughout the day. Additionally, physical activity improves circulation and oxygen flow to the brain, which supports concentration and memory. It also helps reduce mental fatigue and maintain more stable energy levels, especially when practiced consistently. Emotions and stress can negatively affect your body. Negativity can even decrease your immune system's response to disease. Studies in the field of psychoneuroimmunology have shown that chronic stress can alter the production of hormones like cortisol, weakening the body's defenses. Additionally, positive emotional states are associated with better recovery and greater resilience against infections. This is what the delivery of a computer looked like in the 1950s. At that time, machines like the UNIVAC 1 filled entire rooms and required specialized transport, often on large trucks with cranes for installation. These machines were not personal devices, but industrial tools used by governments and large corporations, with such a high cost that only a few organizations could afford them. The ancient Babylonians took beer production very seriously, as it was an important part of their daily life and economy. There were strict laws to regulate its quality, and those who did not meet the standards could face severe punishments according to the norms of the time. During the Meiji era in Japan, there was a custom called ohaguro, where people dyed their teeth black. This prevented tooth decay, and during that time, it was actually considered beautiful. It was common among married women and members of the nobility, as it symbolized maturity and social status. The dye was made from a mixture of iron dissolved in vinegar and other ingredients, forming a protective layer over the teeth. With the modernization of the country, this practice gradually disappeared. Human bone is ridiculously strong. 1 cubic inch of it can support the weight of 5 standard pickup trucks, making it 4 times stronger than concrete. Additionally, this strength is due to its internal structure, a combination of flexible collagen and minerals like calcium, which give it hardness and the ability to absorb impacts. Even over time, bones constantly regenerate, fully renewing themselves approximately every 10 years. That dark band you can see between the primary and secondary arcs of a rainbow has a name. It is known as Alexander's Band, or the Dark Band of Alexander. after Alexander of Aphrodisias first described it in the year 200 after Christ. Squirrels adopt another squirrel's baby if the parent dies. This behavior has been observed mainly among related females, such as sisters or mothers, which increases the chances of survival for the young within the same family group. In addition, by sharing territory and nearby nests, they can care for the young without a significant additional cost, which favors the genetic continuity of the family in environments where predators and food scarcity represent a constant risk. On March 29, 1867, the United States purchased 586,412 square miles of land in the far northwest of the North American continent, which is now the state of Alaska, from Russia. They paid $7.2 million, which was equivalent to about 2 cents per acre. A small bat was seen clinging to the orange external fuel tank of the Space Shuttle Discovery during its launch on March 15, 2009. Despite the intense noise, vibrations, and extreme heat of liftoff, the animal remained attached throughout the countdown, which caught the attention of NASA engineers who documented the event as a rare occurrence in this type of mission. A study published in the journal Neurobiology of Aging shows that the more flights of stairs a person climbs and the more years of schooling a person completes, the younger the brain appears physically. Researcher Jason Steffner, a scientist at the Perform Center at Concordia, found that brain age decreases 0.95 years for each year of education and decreases 0.58 years for each daily flight of stairs climbed. It is genetically impossible for a rose to be blue. Natural roses do not possess the gene necessary to produce the pigments called delphinidin, responsible for blue tones in many flowers. That is why for centuries, gardeners tried unsuccessfully to obtain one. In the 21st century, scientists managed to create bluish roses through genetic engineering, although their color is still closer to violet. All living things can be anesthetized, even plants. Although anesthesia has been used since the 19th century, it is still not completely understood how it works. Experiments have shown that certain anesthetic substances can temporarily cause plants to stop responding to stimuli, such as closing their leaves or moving toward light, and they recover their activity when the effect disappears. Yoda, the Star Wars character, was created based partly on the appearance of Albert Einstein. Designer Stuart Freeborn, who created the original puppet, was partially inspired by the famous scientist's facial features to give the character a look of wisdom and old age. He also incorporated some traits from his own face, which explains part of the unique expression of the Jedi Master. 29 days after the sinking of the Titanic, a movie about the events was made that included the participation of a real survivor of the disaster. The film was titled Saved from the Titanic and starred Dorothy Gibson, an actress who had truly escaped the tragedy. The movie premiered in 1912 and recreated her experience on board, although today it is considered a lost film. Haley Joel Osment, the child who says, "I see dead people" in The Sixth Sense, made his film debut as the son of Forrest Gump. In the 1994 movie, he plays little Forrest Gump Jr., the son of Tom Hanks's character. Years later, he achieved worldwide fame with The Sixth Sense in 1999, a role for which he was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor when he was only 11 years old. A study conducted in the Netherlands concluded that if there is graffiti painted in a neighborhood, people tend to litter twice as much. In addition, more thefts occur. Researchers at Ohio State University have discovered something they call experience taking. It is when, while reading a book or a story, people actually change their behavior or thoughts to match those of a fictional character in a book or story they can identify with. Unconsciously, they become that character. There is a library in Norway that is located on a boat. It is called Epos and has existed since 1959 with a capacity of 6,000 books plus 20,000 that can be on loan. It travels between 3 counties in the region. It was close to being taken out of service, but was saved thanks to the efforts of local residents. The ITT Technical Institute in the United States was investigated in 2011 for inflating students' grades to obtain more money from the government. In fact, in one of those cases, a student received 100% on a forensic computing assignment, even though the only thing he turned in was a noodle recipe. Time magazine named the computer as the Man of the Year, or Person of the Year, in 1982. It was the first time they did not choose a person, but a machine, recognizing the enormous impact personal computers were beginning to have on everyday life, work, education, and the future of society. There are guides with advice on how to survive a fall from an airplane without a parachute that recommend things such as aiming for areas with snow or places with trees that can cushion the fall. There are some examples of people who have survived this way. The Concorde aircraft, which had its final flight in 2003 at a top speed of 1,350 miles per hour, could fly from London, England to New York City in about 3 hours, approximately half the time of other passenger planes. It flew at more than twice the speed of sound, producing the characteristic sonic boom, and during the flight, passengers could see the curvature of the Earth and the sky darken slightly due to the altitude reached. American psychologist Timothy Leary was imprisoned in 1971, where he was given a series of psychological tests to assign him an appropriate job inside the facility. What they did not anticipate was that Leary had helped develop some of those tests earlier, so he used his knowledge to secure a gardening assignment, a position that allowed him to escape easily shortly afterward. North Korea has an ambiguous policy regarding marijuana. Although for years the idea has spread that its use is legal or tolerated, in reality, there is no clear and official information confirming it. The country maintains very strict laws on drugs in general, and various reports indicate that its use can be punished. The country where the most board games are sold in the world is Germany. This is because they are an important part of family culture, and every year fairs such as Essen, the largest in the world, are held where hundreds of new games are presented. When Charles Chaplin received his honorary Oscar, he received a 12-minute standing ovation, the longest in the history of these awards. The tribute took place in 1972, when Chaplin returned to the United States after decades living in Europe. For years, he had been practically banned in Hollywood because of political controversies, so the recognition was seen as a historic reconciliation. The bedroom in The Exorcist was kept refrigerated at temperatures below freezing, so cold that one day when they arrived on set, it was covered in snow. Director William Friedkin wanted the actor's breath to appear naturally on camera. To achieve this, they installed large refrigeration systems that cooled the room for hours before each scene. Mount Olympus on the planet Mars has a height of approximately 16.8 miles, nearly 3 times the height of Mount Everest. The summit is so high that it rises above the planet's atmosphere, and if you were standing on top and looked down, you would not be able to see the base because it would be beyond the horizon line. Bill Gates received an honorary knighthood from Queen Elizabeth, but because he is American, he cannot use the title Sir. Leafcutter ants do not eat the leaves they collect. In reality, they use these leaves to cultivate a specific type of fungus inside their nests. They feed the fungus with the cut leaves and then feed on the fungus they grow, acting as an external digestive system for the ants. One of the 5 things people regret most when they are dying is having worked too much and missed time with family. So, if you are a workaholic, this gives you something to think about. These kinds of reflections come from testimonies collected by palliative care professionals, where many people agree that they would have preferred to spend more time on personal relationships than on career achievements. They also often mention the desire to have lived with less social pressure and more authenticity in their decisions. In one of the ruins in Indiana Jones' Raiders of the Lost Ark, you can see drawings of C-3PO and R2-D2. The detail appears carved into a wall inside the Well of Souls. It was included as a small wink between George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, who used to hide Star Wars references in some of their productions. Even though Japan ranks 62 in terms of land area and 10th in terms of world population, it ranks 3rd in the largest economy, after the United States and China. In addition, it ranks 2nd in life expectancy. The great white shark is an example of an apex predator, which means that, as an adult, it has no natural predators in its ecosystem. It can reach sizes of more than 19 feet and has an extremely powerful bite, with several rows of teeth that are constantly replaced. Its role in the food chain is key, since it helps maintain the balance of other marine species, especially mammals such as seals and sea lions. There is an index called the Good Country Index that measures how much each country contributes to the planet and to humanity. In its most recent version, Sweden ranks first, followed by Denmark and Germany. This index evaluates aspects such as science, culture, peace, climate, and well-being, among others. The Latin American country ranked highest on the list is Chile, in position 33. Elephants are smarter than people think. An elephant in India was trained to place logs into previously dug holes for a ceremony. On one occasion, It refused to place a log into a hole where a dog was sleeping and waited until the dog was moved before lowering the log into the hole. There is no historical evidence that any pirate had a pet parrot that stayed on their shoulder all the time and repeated their orders. This image became popular through novels like Treasure Island, where they were used to make pirates more memorable and striking. James Cameron had no money when he wrote the script for Terminator and sold the rights for only $1, but with the condition that he had to direct it. With that agreement, he managed to convince the producers to finance the movie while keeping creative control. The success of the 1984 film ended up launching his career as one of the most important directors in Hollywood. While the movie Sweeney Todd was being filmed, an orange-colored liquid was used as blood. This was done so it would look better with the film's desaturated color effect. A farmer from Pike County and loyal Democrat, Valentine Tapley, swore he would never trim his beard again if Abraham Lincoln were elected president in 1860. He kept his word, and his beard grew to 12.5 feet long. The oldest public housing complex in the world is still in use. It is located in Germany and maintains an annual rent of only approximately $0.95, or its equivalent, since 1516. As requirements, residents must be Catholic, have lived in Augsburg for at least 2 years, and prayed daily for the owners. The doors close at 10 p.m., and each apartment has a unique doorbell to identify it in the dark. Jack Nicholson grew up believing his mother was his sister and his grandparents were his parents. He did not discover the truth until both his mother and grandmother had died. The truth came to light when journalists were investigating his past during his rise in Hollywood, revealing that he had actually been raised that way to avoid the social stigma of the time. This story has been mentioned in several interviews and biographies of actor Jack Nicholson, and it remains one of the most striking cases of family identity in the entertainment world. Cruise ships are so large and so difficult to move that their pollution emissions can equal those of 1 million cars, and the air quality on deck is usually worse than in the most polluted cities in the world. More paper is used in Japan for manga, which are Japanese comics, than for toilet paper. For decades, weekly and monthly manga magazines have had enormous print runs, sometimes millions of copies per edition. Many of them are printed on inexpensive, thick paper because they are meant to be read quickly and then recycled. Isaac Newton was the first person to propose that planet Earth was not a perfect sphere. It is an oblate spheroid, flattened at the poles and bulging at the equator. From the center of the Earth, sea level is approximately 13 miles higher at the equator than at the poles. There is an inn in Idaho called Dog Bark Park Inn, where guests can stay inside the largest beagle in the world. You enter the body of the beagle from a second-floor platform. Going up another level toward the dog's head, there is a loft, and there is additional sleeping space in a cozy nook in the snout. In total, around 15 million Ford Model T cars were produced, of which, more than a century after production ended, it is currently estimated that 60,000 remain in running condition. In 2009, archaeologists discovered fossils of a primitive species of crocodiles that actually galloped. They lived 100 million years ago, walked alongside dinosaurs, and sometimes even ate them. Humans and elephants are the only animals with a chin. In humans, the chin is a bony protrusion on the lower jaw that does not clearly appear in other primates. Elephants show a similar structure on the front of their lower jaw that resembles a chin, something uncommon among mammals. In 2006, a woman from Michigan named Lynn Sterling attempted to sell a mummified human skeleton on eBay. eBay removed the listing because it violated its policy against the sale of human remains. If all people's viewing time is combined, more than 18,000 years of Netflix are watched every day. Mount Everest, the highest mountain on the planet, grows every year because the Indian subcontinent is pushing into China. Why can't we all just get along? In reality, the Indian tectonic plate continues moving slowly northward and presses against the Eurasian plate. That geological collision lifts the Himalaya mountain range a few millimeters each year, although erosion also reduces part of that growth. It is possible that a venomous snake, even after being separated from its body for a time, can still bite reflexively and inject venom. According to Stephen Beaupre, these animals can maintain certain reflexes active for a short period. In species such as cobras or rattlesnakes, the bite is one of those reflexes, so it is recommended to always keep a distance and exercise caution. Agricultural engineer Norman Borlaug developed special crops that produce up to 4 times more food. It is estimated that he saved the lives of more than 1 billion people, making him one of the most influential humans in history. A teenager from Malawi named William Kamkwamba learned how to build a windmill from scrap to generate electricity in his village. Later, he built a larger one to bring water. He learned all of this from books he read in the local library. The Chinese giant salamander is the largest living amphibian in the world and can grow up to 6 feet long. It inhabits cold, mountainous rivers in China, where it spends most of its time hidden under rocks. It is a nocturnal predator that feeds on fish, crustaceans, and other small animals, and it uses its highly sensitive skin to detect vibrations in the water. It is currently critically endangered due to habitat loss and hunting. Lions used to be the mammal that covered the most territory in the world. They were present on all continents, but their dominance ended approximately 12,000 years ago when humans spread out and perfected hunting with tools. A man named Daniel Balsam was so bothered by spam email that he quit his job, studied law, and later managed to impose fines totaling more than $1 million against those who send these types of emails. The Dark Knight made more money in its first 6 days in theaters than Batman Begins made in total. The enormous success of the film in 2008 was partly due to the huge public expectation and Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker, which became one of the most memorable performances in modern cinema. There is a Starbucks coffee shop on the Great Wall of China that is built inside a house with traditional local architectural style and offers an exclusive snack called Dragon Dumplings. According to Professor Charles B. Gerba of the Department of Soil, Water, and Environmental Science at the University of Arizona, 20% of office coffee mugs carry fecal bacteria. The video game Black Myth Wukong, developed by an independent Chinese studio and which sold millions of copies in its first days after release, is based on the Chinese novel Journey to the West. The popular franchise Dragon Ball is also based on that story as its original inspiration. Among the similarities they share, for example, both main characters use a magical staff. After the movie Fight Club was released, a bunch of fight clubs started popping up all over the United States. A gentleman's fight club was started in Menlo Park, whose members were exclusively from the tech industry. That would be interesting. It would be like, okay, I'm going to punch you now. The character Apollo Creed from the movie Rocky is based on Muhammad Ali. The fictional boxer shares with him the charismatic style, the confidence in front of the public, and the spectacular way of promoting his fights. Sylvester Stallone himself has mentioned that he was inspired by Ali's personality and fighting style when creating Rocky's original rival. When the book Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone was released in 1997, it became the first book to sell more than 100 million copies in over 40 years. The previous one had been The Lord of the Rings in 1955. According to the Guinness World Records, the first human cannonball was a woman named Rosa Zazel Richter in 1877. She was fired a distance of about 20 feet at the Westminster Aquarium in London, England. After winning the FIFA World Cup, German footballer Mesut Ozil donated his €300,000 victory bonus to help fund surgeries for 23 Brazilian children. The donation went toward medical treatments that many families could not afford, especially surgical procedures needed to improve the children's quality of life. This gesture was widely recognized and added to other charitable actions the player has supported throughout his career. The island nation of Tokelau, located in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, receives 100% of its electricity from solar energy through panels and batteries. Hopefully, other countries will soon follow those steps to stop polluting with so much burned coal. In the first Spider-Man movie in 2002, the spider that bit Peter Parker was a real spider similar to a Black Widow. It was anesthetized and painted red and blue to film the scene. The effects team used several takes to capture the exact moment when the arachnid walked across the actor's hand. Later, digital details were added to make it appear like a genetically modified species. In the state of Vermont in the United States, there are many houses with windows tilted at 45 degrees. They are traditionally called witch windows and are believed to have originated from the belief that witches could not enter on their flying brooms through a slanted window like that. President Calvin Coolidge had a pet raccoon named Rebecca. It was originally supposed to be eaten at his White House Thanksgiving dinner in 1926, but the Coolidge family found her friendly and docile and decided to keep her as a pet instead. The fossil of Borealopelta is so well preserved that it looks like a sculpture. Discovered accidentally by Canadian miners in 2011, this 110-million-year-old dinosaur preserves its skin and soft tissues intact, allowing scientists to see what it really looked like without the need for speculation to recreate its appearance. On November 7, 1907, a Mexican railroad worker named Jesus Garcia single-handedly saved the population of a nearby town called Nacozari, Sonora, by driving away a train loaded with dynamite. The train exploded 3.7 miles from the town and killed the brave man in the process. George Lucas has earned more than $4 billion from the Star Wars franchise. All of this happened because when he made the first movie, instead of accepting a salary of $1 million, he chose only $125,000, with a condition of directing the following movies and owning the licensing rights for promotional merchandise. The creators of the movie Beverly Hills Cop invented a technology called satellite location system. Years later, it actually became real, the common GPS. In the film, the device is mentioned as an advanced way to track vehicles from space. In real life, the global positioning system was developed by the United States military and began becoming available for civilian use during the 1990s. The Italian tractor manufacturer Ferruccio Lamborghini personally complained to Enzo Ferrari that the clutches in Ferrari cars were poor and wore out very easily, but his complaint was ignored and mocked. That became his inspiration to create Lamborghini sports cars. According to research conducted and published in the journal Chemosensory Perception, people who scored high on a psychopathy test had more difficulty distinguishing different smells and also identifying odors. In other words, if your sense of smell is impaired, you could be a psychopath. Two movies competed to have the song Who Let the Dogs Out when it was released. Nickelodeon wanted it for Rugrats in Paris, and Disney for 102 Dalmatians. But in the end, Nickelodeon won because it offered to pay to produce the music video and hold a special live concert with the band Baha Men. At just 32 feet, this is reportedly the shortest international bridge in the world, connecting Canada and the United States on the St. Lawrence River. Oh, however, although this seems to be a well-known fact, it is actually a myth. The two islands the bridge connects are actually both in Canada. You see, do not trust everything tour guides tell you. If you were on Titan, the largest moon of Saturn, you could fly if you put on fake bird wings. This is possible because the atmosphere is very dense and gravity is very low. Apollo 13, Armageddon, and Around the World in 80 Days are among the movies carried on board the International Space Station. Astronauts usually bring a small digital library with movies, series, and music for their free time. Many have space or adventure themes, and sometimes they are watched together during rest periods to help maintain morale during missions that can last several months. According to Hinduism, science offers only a limited view of reality, but at the same time, everything it says is correct, allowing religion to have no contradiction with science. For this reason, the vast majority of Hindus accept the theory of evolution as fact. According to recent evaluations by the firm Interbrand on the best global brands, Apple and Microsoft have remained among the top positions in the global ranking, reflecting their continued influence in the industry. Google also continues as one of the most valuable brands, while Amazon and Samsung are among the most prominent. Together, these companies represent the dominance of the technology sector in brand value worldwide today. The word coccyx comes from the Greek term for the call of a cuckoo. They named the bone at the base of the spine that way because it resembles a cuckoo's beak. This bone is the vestige of a tail that many animals have, but in humans, it was reduced to what it is now. Researchers have found that, for a century, female students have consistently earned higher grades than male students, and although fewer women choose to pursue careers in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, they excel in these subjects. There is a Santa Claus University, where students learn things about toys, how to talk, and how to move in order to portray Santa. The best can earn up to $100,000 per year. Sylvester Stallone became so poor that he had to sell his dog for $50. A week later, he managed to sell the script for Rocky and went back to buy his dog for $3,000. It seems he was not very good at business. The dog was named Butkus and had been his companion during the hardest years. He even appears in the first Rocky movie as the protagonist's pet, a small, real detail that became immortalized in film history. Biologists led by Koji Nishida at Osaka University have discovered a new way to grow parts of the human eye, such as the retina, the cornea, the lens, and more, simply by using a small sample of adult skin. This advance is based on the reprogramming of cells to turn them into stem cells capable of forming ocular tissues, which opens possibilities for treating diseases such as blindness or corneal injuries without the need for donors, reducing the risk of rejection and improving visual regeneration. Bibliophobia is the irrational fear of having nothing left to read. Although it is not an official clinical term, it is used to describe people who feel anxiety at the thought of not having books or any other reading material available. The extinct dodo bird got its name from the Dutch. They called the bird dodars, which loosely translates to fat bottoms. The bird needed a diet. It inhabited the island of Mauritius and, having no natural predators, lost the ability to fly over time. Its extinction in the 17th century was mainly due to the arrival of humans, hunting, and the introduction of animals like rats and pigs that destroyed its nests. If planet Earth were the size of a grain of sand, the sun would be the size of an orange. That is how big the sun is. In fact, more than 1 million Earths could fit inside the sun, and its gravity is so powerful that it keeps all the planets in the solar system orbiting around it. The German city of Wolfsburg was built entirely to house employees of the Volkswagen automobile factory, which, to this day, remains one of the largest factories in the world. The name of Edward Norton's character in Fight Club is never mentioned in the movie. Throughout the story, other characters simply call him narrator, since the plot unfolds from his point of view and through his voiceover. In the original 1996 novel written by Chuck Palahniuk, exactly the same thing happens, reinforcing the idea that the character represents an anonymous identity within modern society. In 1979, an Arctic bison was discovered in Alaska that had been preserved in ice for more than 8,000 years. It is an extinct species that inhabited the northern regions of the planet. While preparing it for exhibition, researchers decided to taste it and discovered that the meat had been well preserved, with only a slight earthy flavor. The life expectancy of people with Down syndrome has increased from 25 years in 1983 to 60 years today. This progress is related to better medical care, especially for congenital heart conditions, which used to be one of the main causes of mortality. In addition, social inclusion, access to education, and early therapies have allowed for a more active life, with many adults working, living semi-independently, and fully participating in their communities. Walt Disney decided to place trash cans in Disneyland no more than 30 steps apart. This was after they calculated an average of how many steps a person walks with trash before throwing it on the ground, something they observed in other company parks. Perfectionist people tend to demand a lot from themselves, which can generate high levels of stress and affect their emotional well-being if they fail to meet their own expectations. That is why it is important to remember that making mistakes is natural and part of learning, and that being more flexible with yourself can help you live with greater peace of mind. Samuel L. Jackson was perfect for the character of Nick Fury in The Avengers because in the comics, that character is actually based on him. In Marvel's Ultimate comic line, published in the early 2000s, the artists redesigned the character with the appearance of the actor himself. They even included a reference where Fury mentions that he would like to be played by Samuel L. Jackson in a movie. An empty cardboard box was added to the Toy Hall of Fame in New York in 2005 due to its reputation as an improvised toy for children. According to research conducted by Eric Prather, an assistant professor of psychiatry at the University of California, you are 4 times more likely to catch a cold if you sleep less than 6 hours per night. In that study, volunteers were exposed to a cold virus, and it was observed that those who slept less developed symptoms more frequently. Sleep directly influences the immune system, affecting the production of defenses, so maintaining regular schedules can reduce the risk of common infections. December 31st, 1844, is a day that did not exist in the Philippines, since the country moved from one side of the international date line to the other to simplify trade with neighboring nations. In 2013, Google established a company called Calico that focuses on health, well-being, and longevity. However, what is strange about it is not that its goal is to extend human life, but that it aims to cure death. That is creepy. Actor Liam Neeson was offered the role of James Bond, but he did not do it because his wife told him she would not marry him if he accepted the role. Well, at that time she was not his wife yet. Cerro Rico in Bolivia is known as the mountain that eats men due to the large number of men who have died there while working in the mines. In fact, historians have estimated that around 8 million men have died in the mines since the 16th century. Neither Ian McKellen nor Patrick Stewart knew how to play chess when they filmed X-Men. Despite that they had to record several scenes in front of the board portraying Magneto and Professor Xavier as if they were experienced players. During filming, they received basic guidance on how to move the pieces naturally, although the final result relied more on acting than on real strategy. Once, inventor Nikola Tesla spent more than $2,000 building a device to support a pigeon so it could heal. It had one wing and one leg broken. Lawn darts with sharp, elongated tips are banned in Canada. These games, known as lawn darts, were removed from the market after several serious accidents, especially involving children, due to their heavy metal tips. The ban aims to prevent injuries, as they could cause serious harm when falling from a height, which also led to similar restrictions in other countries, such as the United States. During the 1,232 episodes across the 25 seasons in which Ash Ketchum starred in the Pokemon anime, he only caught 57 different Pokemon. If evolutions are included as new Pokemon, his total was 98, which represents only 12% of those that were available to catch. Not a very good percentage considering that his goal was to catch them all. The Hanover County School Board in Virginia attempted to ban To Kill a Mockingbird in 1966. When she found out about this, the author Harper Lee sent a letter to the school board asking if they knew how to read and write, and offered some money to enroll them in first grade. Ouch. The website howoldisinternet.net tells you exactly how many days the internet has existed since its birth. So far, it is around 20,200 days. Russian Emperor Peter the Great tried to modernize late 17th century society by applying taxes to men who did not shave their beards. Those who paid the tax had to carry a kind of bronze coin to prove it. Underwater hockey is a sport where two teams compete to push a puck along the bottom of a swimming pool into the opposing team's goal. It originated in England in 1954 and is also called octopush. Players use snorkels, fins, and a small stick to maneuver the puck, which requires great endurance and coordination. Additionally, communication underwater is limited, so teamwork becomes essential. In the region of Laguna in Brazil, bottlenose dolphins guide fish toward local fishermen and then signal with tail slaps for them to cast their nets. The dolphins feed on the fish that escape. These dolphins were not trained for this behavior, and this collaboration between dolphins and fishermen has been occurring since at least 1847. 47% of the world's mail volume is handled by the United States Postal Service. This enormous proportion is due to the extensive logistics network that covers the entire country, including rural and remote areas, with millions of daily shipments. In addition, its infrastructure allows it to process and sort large amounts of correspondence quickly, relying on automated centers and a transportation fleet that operates continuously. Bats save the agricultural industry billions of dollars every year because some of them eat insects, reducing the need for pesticides. Likewise, fruit bats help pollinate plants such as peaches, bananas, and agave, among others. Arnold Schwarzenegger was paid approximately $21,000 per word for his role in Terminator 2. The actor speaks very few lines during the movie, but his physical presence and distinctive style were key to the character. His famous line, "Hasta la vista, baby," became one of the most remembered quotes in action film history. Filming The Hunger Games: Catching Fire caused Jennifer Lawrence to become temporarily deaf in one ear. The problem occurred during an action scene in the water when a powerful jet of water struck her ear. The pressure damaged her eardrum for a while, and she had to continue filming with that discomfort for several weeks. The lemon-lime soda 7-Up originally contained lithium citrate, a compound used to treat mood disorders, but years later, this ingredient was removed. It is believed that its name comes from lithium's atomic mass, which is 7. When lobsters fight or court each other, they actually spray urine at each other's faces from small urine release nozzles beneath their eyes. This behavior functions as a form of chemical communication, since the urine contains signals that indicate size, reproductive status, and level of aggression. During these encounters, lobsters also move their antennae to better perceive these signals, which helps them decide whether to continue the confrontation or withdraw without direct physical contact. Ford Model T cars initially, between 1908 and 1913, were available in several colors, including red, blue, green, and gray. However, starting in 1914, Henry Ford decided to produce it exclusively in black to optimize production and reduce costs, since black paint dried the fastest. The Model T was the first car produced in a factory using the assembly line system. In 2005, a girl in Ethiopia was taken by force and saved by 3 wild lions. The lions, incredibly, scared away the attackers and stayed with her until the police found her. A gray parrot named Nigel, who spoke English, escaped from his home in California, United States. After 4 years, he returned home, and to the surprise of his owners, the parrot now knew how to speak Spanish. Actor Ryan Gosling received an offer to be part of the Backstreet Boys when they were just forming, but he turned it down. The University of Oxford is so old that one of its constituent colleges, New College, was actually established in 1379. The University of Oxford itself had already been teaching since the late 11th century, making it one of the oldest academic institutions in the English-speaking world. Additionally, New College was founded by William of Wykeham and stood out for its innovative educational and architectural model for its time. Everglades National Park in Florida, United States, is the only place in the world where crocodiles and alligators naturally coexist. This unique ecosystem, considered the only subtropical wilderness in North America, is home to both species. Alligators have U-shaped snouts, and crocodiles have V-shaped snouts, and, in general, are larger. In the United States, the government can legally read any email you have that is more than 180 days old without a warrant. The Electronic Communications Privacy Act was enacted long before everyone had email, but the government claims the law still allows them to do this. The ginkgo biloba tree is considered a living fossil. Fossils of this species more than 290 million years old have been found, and it has barely changed since then. All other species of its class and of the ginkgo genus have long been extinct. Before the 1960 movie Psycho was filmed, Alfred Hitchcock bought all the existing copies of the book so that no one would know the ending of the story. He also asked theaters not to allow people to enter after the movie had started, something very unusual at that time. Only 3 places in the world have changed from driving on the right side to driving on the left side, which are East Timor, Okinawa, and Samoa. These changes usually occur for political or historical reasons, such as the influence of neighboring countries or former colonial administrations. In Samoa, for example, the change was made in 2009 to make it easier to import vehicles from Australia and New Zealand. There is a 16-story building in Osaka, Japan, through which a highway passes on the 5th, 6th, and 7th floors. When the highway was being built, an agreement could not be reached over acquiring the land, and the owners wanted to build the building, so an arrangement was made to construct both. The crew of Apollo 15 placed a small aluminum sculpture on the moon to commemorate fallen astronauts. In 1971, that number was 14. There is also a plaque with their names. The work, known as Fallen Astronaut, was created by Belgian artist Paul van Hooijdonk and represents all space explorers who had died up to that point, including both Americans and Soviets. In 1995, NASA scientists experimented with spiders to see how drugs like LSD, marijuana, and caffeine affected them. The results showed that spiders spin their webs differently depending on the type of drug they receive. The more toxic the drug, the less organized their webs become. Since the HBO miniseries Chernobyl aired and became one of the highest-rated shows by critics, tourism to the city where the nuclear plant is located increased by 40%. Feeding bread to ducks is not a good idea, since they can swell due to yeast expansion. Well, they do not explode exactly, but eating bread makes them feel full without receiving the necessary nutrients, which causes poor nutrition, so it is better to feed them something else. After Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, his body was taken on a 2-week, 994-mile journey by train. It was accompanied by the body of his son, William Wallace Lincoln, who had died of typhoid fever at only 11 years old and had been buried in the Washington, D.C. area in 1862. The train made a route through 400 railroad stations, and viewings were organized where his body was displayed for mourners. In the 1500s and 1600s, in some regions of Europe, a device called the scold's bridle, also known as branks, was used as a form of punishment for people considered problematic or quarrelsome. This device consisted of a metal structure placed over the head that restricted speech with the intention of enforcing silence. According to a survey, people who wear black appear more serious and trustworthy. Almost 50% of women and 64% of men believe that black shows confidence. Orange juice and different foods taste strange after brushing your teeth because toothpaste blocks our sweet receptors on our taste buds since the foam changes the permeability of the tongue's cells. Watermelon is composed of 92% water. In fact, it is an excellent option for staying hydrated and is low in calories. It also provides vitamin C, vitamin A, and antioxidants such as lycopene, which gives it its characteristic red color. In addition, it contains citrulline, a compound related to blood circulation, which makes it a refreshing and nutritious fruit, especially during warm weather. Astronaut Chris Hadfield once mentioned that during his stay on the International Space Station, all the astronauts tried to move around using their own gases. Although it was theoretically believed to be possible, in their case it did not work. It did not provide enough thrust. 1 out of every 15 humans owns a Harry Potter book. This is because the saga is one of the best-selling in history, with hundreds of millions of copies distributed in dozens of languages and read by people of all ages around the world. Washing your hands with hot water does not remove more bacteria than washing them with cold water, as some people believe. Water temperature only destroys bacteria when it reaches the boiling point. Glass is not biodegradable because its main ingredient is sand, which is not biodegradable despite being a naturally occurring material. Not all types of glass can be recycled, such as drinking and cooking glass that is treated with extra elements to increase its resistance to temperature changes. In 1963, Alfred Heineken designed the Heineken World Bottle, a brick that contains beer and can be used to build houses. Unfortunately, the project was never realized, and the Heineken Estate and Museum are the only 2 places in the world with a wall made of beer bricks installed. That sounds like a tasty wall. There are tea bags that make it look like there is a goldfish swimming in your cup. In 1996, David Bowie released the single Telling Lies, which was the first song by a well-known artist to be available exclusively for online download. With the internet speeds of that time, it could take up to 15 minutes to download. The first mechanical clocks, including the oldest pocket watches from the 16th century, had only one hand. These single-hand clocks indicated only the hours, similar to sundials. Precision was not as crucial at that time. Old tower clocks also had only one hand. The character Scully from The X-Files contributed to the growth of women entering fields such as science, medicine, and law. According to research, this was even named the Scully effect. According to studies, people with depression tend to have a more accurate interpretation of reality around them than people with completely healthy minds. There are fireworks that can be launched during the daytime using colored smoke. There are people who dedicate themselves to waiting in line for you. For example, Robert Samuel is a professional line waiter who earns up to $1,000 per week providing his services. Anne Frank was born in 1929, the same year Chespirito was born. In Dubai, there is a weight loss competition called Your Child in Gold. The campaign is aimed at early childhood obesity, and the winners receive 88 pounds of gold. The hydrogen contained in the core of the planet Saturn is so dense that it becomes metal. It is believed that metallic hydrogen could exist as a liquid rather than a solid under high temperature conditions. Scientists have attempted to create it on planet Earth many times, but have not succeeded. In Belgium, voting is mandatory, and citizens are automatically registered to do so. More than 90% of the population goes to vote to avoid fines. After Switzerland, the place with the most gold reserves per capita in the world is Lebanon. Much of that gold was accumulated over decades as financial backing for the country. The reserves are stored in the central bank and in vaults abroad, and for years they have been considered an important guarantee for Lebanon's economic stability. In early versions of the script for the movie Star Wars, some stormtroopers carried lightsabers, and there were also female stormtroopers, but this was quickly discarded. These ideas were later revisited in the 2015 movie The Force Awakens with the character Captain Phasma. In 1958, Robert Lane of New York City named one of his sons Winner and later named another son Loser. Winner ended up being a criminal with a long arrest record, and his son Loser attended preparatory school on a scholarship, graduated from college, and joined the New York Police Department. When Yahoo started in 1994, it was called Jerry and David's Guide to the Internet, and it was only a page with a list of links to websites organized by categories. Just 6 years later, Yahoo became, for a short period of time, the most valuable company in the world, when its shares reached a price of $475. The Nasir al-Mulk Mosque in Iran is known for its incredible stained glass. When the morning sunlight shines through the windows, the interior of the mosque reflects the glass like a kaleidoscope. In 1947, Isamu Noguchi designed a giant earth sculpture that could be seen from Mars, but it was never built. Then, in 1976, a formation that appears to be a sculpture of a face was observed on the red planet. The Martians won that time. When we speak mentally, meaning the voice only we hear, we make small, almost imperceptible movements in our larynx. Each shark has its own character and personality. Some are more reserved, and others are more sociable. Studies have shown that even the same shark can behave differently depending on the situation, demonstrating that they do not act only on instinct, but also through individual behavior. Alan Gans holds the world record for the longest career as an ice cream man. He has been serving ice cream since 1947 in the Boston metropolitan area and knows 90% of his customers by name. Some crickets build their own megaphones. It was discovered that some small crickets bite into leaves and make a pear-shaped hole and position themselves in such a way that the sound they produce is amplified by the leaf. They do this to find a mate. In 2013, a man got a tattoo with the word Netflix and tweeted it to the company. Shortly afterward, they replied and gave him 1 year of service. Most Muppets are left-handed because the puppeteers use their dominant hand to control the mouth and the other hand to control the arms. Since many puppeteers are right-handed, they insert that hand inside the character's head to move the mouth precisely. The other hand controls one of the arms using rods or gloves. There is a dwarf planet beyond the orbit of Neptune called Haumea. Its rotation is so fast that it has the shape of an ellipsoid. Basically, it is an egg-shaped planet. It completes one rotation on its axis in less than 4 hours, an extraordinary speed for an object of its size. It also has 2 small moons and a thin ring system discovered by astronomers in 2017. More than 3,000 years ago, before any method existed to observe microorganisms, the Roman scholar Marcus Varro described bacteria by stating that they were tiny creatures that enter the body through the mouth or nose and cause disease. More than 1,500 years had to pass before his theory was finally confirmed. NASA's robotic spacecraft Juno traveled a total distance of 1,740,000,000 miles to reach the planet Jupiter. It was launched from Cape Canaveral on August 5, 2011, and arrived at Jupiter on July 4, 2016. Explorer Michel Siffre conducted an experiment in which he lived completely isolated approximately 426 feet underground for 2 months without any time reference, and discovered that his biological clock had shifted to cycles of sleeping and being awake that lasted 48 hours instead of 24. NASA took the conclusions of these experiments into account for the Apollo space missions. People who are in love can synchronize their heartbeats just by looking into each other's eyes. Oh, how sweet. Research has observed that, in certain couples, heart rate and breathing can temporarily align during prolonged eye contact. This phenomenon is associated with empathy, emotional connection, and the release of hormones like oxytocin, known for its role in bonding. There are farms where cows are trained to use milking machines by themselves. They can use them whenever they want. Even if they try to use them too often, there is a system that keeps them away. The official vegetable of the state of Oklahoma in the United States is the watermelon. However, watermelons are not vegetables. They are fruits. It was declared the official vegetable in 2007 for cultural and agricultural reasons, which generated debate and confusion about its true classification. Jupiter's gravity could dramatically alter Mercury's orbit in the distant future. There is even a small probability that this planet could collide with Venus, Earth, or the Sun. However, this would not occur for billions of years. Gravitational interactions can have surprising effects on astronomical timescales. According to a study conducted, smells can influence our dreams. Study subjects who were infused with the scent of roses while dreaming had, in almost all cases, pleasant dreams. However, when the air around those subjects was infused with the smell of rotten eggs while dreaming, they had negative dreams. In the late 1990s, there was a television show in Russia called The Interception, in which contestants had to steal a car. If they succeeded without being caught by the police and in less than 35 minutes, they were given the car. But if they failed, they were arrested. The ash from coal power plants contains uranium and thorium and releases 100 times more radiation into the surrounding environment than nuclear power plants. Eskimos use refrigerators to prevent their food and drinks from freezing. In Arctic regions, outside temperatures can be so low that food freezes easily. That is why people sometimes use ordinary refrigerators as a kind of insulated box that keeps products at a slightly higher temperature and prevents them from becoming completely solid. There is a store in Canada called Child's Own Studio, where children's drawings are turned into real fabric toys, including all their details. In California, on July 30th, 2016, 42-year-old skydiver Luke Akins became the first person to jump from an airplane without a parachute or wingsuit. He jumped from 25,000 feet toward the ground, setting a world record for the highest jump. He landed safely in a 100-square-foot net, which is approximately one-third the size of an American football field. Michael Jackson's Super Bowl halftime show in 1993 had higher ratings than the game itself. It is estimated that it had an audience of 133 million viewers, this in the United States alone, making it one of the most watched events in the history of that country. A single Google search query requires more computing power than was needed to land Apollo 11 on the moon. This is because the computers used in the Apollo 11 program had extremely limited capabilities compared to modern systems. In contrast, Google processes massive amounts of data in fractions of a second through distributed data centers, reflecting the enormous technological advancement in just a few decades. Although it is the most famous in the world, the Grand Canyon in Arizona is not the largest canyon in the world. The Yarlung Sangpo Canyon is actually the largest. It is located in Tibet, a region of China, or an independent region, however you want to call it. Min-sik Choi had to eat 4 live octopuses to film the famous scene in Old Boy. The actor, who is Buddhist, had to go pray immediately afterward to redeem himself. The scene was repeated several times to get the correct take, which turned that moment into one of the most shocking and talked about scenes in South Korean cinema. Lake Kivu, located in Rwanda, is one of only 3 known lakes in the world capable of a limnic eruption, which are events where carbon dioxide is suddenly released, killing all animals and people nearby. It is believed this occurs every 1,000 years. More than 2 million people currently live near this lake. Apple has sold more than 3 billion iPhones worldwide, establishing it as one of the most successful technology products in history. Since its launch in 2007, the iPhone has evolved with improvements in cameras, performance, and connectivity, influencing the design of the mobile industry. In addition, its ecosystem of applications and services has generated a massive economic impact on developers and digital markets around the world. Before air conditioning was invented, people used ingenious techniques to stay cool. For example, houses with high ceilings so heat would rise, shaded porches to socialize during hot evenings, and sometimes they even slept on fire escapes. It is said that some people would store their underwear in the freezer so they would have an option to cool off quickly. In January 1961, the United States Air Force suffered an accident when a bomber broke apart in midair near Goldsboro, North Carolina, causing 2 nuclear bombs to fall. Fortunately, they did not detonate, and the incident led to strengthened safety systems to prevent risks in handling this type of weapon. When the Duchess of Cornwall, Camilla Parker Bowles, visited the city of Abu Dhabi in 2016, she became the first member of the British royal family to be protected by a team of female bodyguards wearing traditional clothing. They belonged to the Presidential Guard of the United Arab Emirates and were fully trained in martial arts and combat. The megamouth shark is an extremely rare species of shark that was discovered in 1976. So far, only 60 individuals have been observed. Volcanic ash has been used as an abrasive ingredient for many years in soaps, erasers, polishes, toothpastes, and beauty products, among others. The country of India recognizes dolphins as non-human persons and is one of 4 countries where the import and export of cetaceans, such as whales or narwhals for entertainment purposes, is prohibited. Cars, despite being Pixar's least good movie, is the most successful franchise from the studio. It has generated more than $10 billion in sales, counting only merchandise. Much of the success comes from toys, clothing, and children's products inspired by characters like Lightning McQueen and Mater, which are very popular with kids. In a 1995 episode of The Simpsons, Lisa's Wedding, where Lisa sees a prediction of her future in the year 2010, One scene shows Lisa's fiance buying a soy snack from a vending machine using a credit card. Today, those things exist and are normal, even though at that time it was satire. The texture of aluminum cans that contain food is necessary to allow flexibility during the packaging process and to add structural integrity during transportation and storage. It makes them more resistant. Graviki Labs, based in India, has found a way to use pigment from carbon soot in polluted air to manufacture pens, oil paints, and spray paint. A single air ink pen contains 30 to 40 minutes of carbon emissions from a single car. Making the movie Titanic cost more than building the real ship itself. The 1997 film had a budget close to $200 million. Adjusted for inflation, building the original Titanic in 1912 would have cost less than producing the movie. During breaks while filming the movie Planet of the Apes in 1968, actors dressed as chimpanzees only socialized with others dressed the same way, and those dressed as gorillas did the same. This was not a director's instruction. It simply happened. The parks of the Walt Disney Company can deny entry or request that a person leave the premises if their appearance does not meet their dress code standards. This includes tattoos that are considered offensive or inappropriate according to their policies, which aim to maintain a family-friendly environment for all visitors. The sea breeze exists because of temperature differences between land and sea. During the day, the land heats up faster than the water, creating low-pressure zones over the land. To restore balance, the cooler air from the sea moves toward the land, creating this phenomenon. At night, the opposite effect occurs, the land breeze. There is an episode of Mythbusters where they decided to test the myth of whether cereal boxes are more nutritious than the cereal itself. They put 3 mice on different diets. One ate cereal, another ate regular food, and the third ate food made of cardboard. After 5 days, they observed the cages, and there were no longer 3 mice in the group. There was only one very fat mouse. Apparently, he really did not like eating cardboard. At no point is the word mafia mentioned in the movie The Godfather. This is because the real mafia asked that it be that way. During production, representatives of the Italian-American Civil Rights League pressured the studio to avoid the use of certain terms. In the end, it was decided to use expressions like family or the organization instead of the word mafia. A person can be considered more attractive when seen in a group of many people than when seen individually. This is because we tend to generalize the features of a group and instinctively consider average faces more attractive. During the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games, the procession is always led by the Greek team, followed by the other teams in alphabetical order, and the last team is always the host country. Some adventurers climbed the Ojos del Salado volcano in Chile using Jeep Wrangler vehicles and set a record for the highest altitude reached by a vehicle, approximately 21,800 feet. To celebrate, they put up a sign that read, "Parking for Jeep only." Shortly afterward, other adventurers managed to surpass that record by approximately 656 feet using a Suzuki Samurai and removed the sign in the process. Buzz Aldrin's first words after landing on the moon were, "Beautiful view, magnificent desolation." This moment occurred shortly after Buzz Aldrin joined Neil Armstrong on the surface during the historic Apollo 11 mission in July 1969. Of the 20 most polluted cities on the planet, 15 are in India. The city of Gurgaon is the most polluted in the world and is located in that country. This is mainly due to heavy traffic, industrial activity, construction dust, and fuel burning, factors that seriously affect air quality. O.J. Simpson was going to be the lead actor in Terminator, but the studio became convinced that no one could see him as a killer. Ironies of life. The role finally went to Arnold Schwarzenegger, who transformed the character into one of the most iconic villains in science fiction cinema since its release in 1984. In the movie Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Willy Wonka has a childhood memory in which his father tells him that some children can be allergic to chocolate, so he would not want to try it. The actor who played Wonka, Johnny Depp, actually had a real chocolate allergy in his childhood. Willy Wonka will be portrayed in the prequel to this story by actor Timothée Chalamet. Robert Behnke, a farmer from Wisconsin, owns the queen of milk production cows. His cow, Gigi, has produced more milk in 1 year than any other cow, with 8,700 gallons. That is 3 times the national average of what a dairy cow produces in a year. The leaf grasshopper, in addition to having the evolutionary trait of looking like a leaf so predators do not notice it, also has its ears on its legs. Specifically, they have a structure called a tympanal organ on their limbs that detects vibrations and helps them hear sounds accurately. Sture Bergwall was known in the 1990s as a notorious killer in Sweden. He confessed to more than 30 murders and other crimes, but it turned out he was actually just a compulsive liar and manipulator, and he never killed anyone or committed any crime. He has issues. The man has issues. Goran Kropp, a man from Sweden, one day rode his bicycle all the way to Nepal, then climbed Mount Everest alone without assistance, and afterward returned to Sweden on the same bicycle. Researchers from McGill University in Montreal, Canada, raised a fish called Polypterus. It can breathe air and walk on land using its front fins. In controlled experiments, some specimens were raised out of water for extended periods, developing changes in their anatomy and movement, which provides clues about how early vertebrates may have adapted to land environments millions of years ago. It is estimated that the beetles played together for more than 2,000 hours during their shows in Hamburg, Germany. This was before they obtained their first recording contract. During their most active period, they played up to 46 hours a week, and, according to estimates, before their arrival in the United States, which marked the beginning of their worldwide fame, they had already accumulated at least 10,000 hours of practice. In 2001, Robin Williams met and became friends with Coco, the gorilla who communicates using sign language. After learning of Robin Williams' death, Coco made the sign for the word cry and remained somber for the rest of the day. Most bee species do not live in colonies or hives. They build their nests in the ground, in trees, or even in shells left behind by other animals. The Hercules beetle can lift the equivalent of 850 times its own weight, making it one of the strongest animals in the world. It would be like a human weighing approximately 176 pounds, lifting something around 150,000 pounds. Since 1991, there had been plans to make a movie of The Simpsons. The first idea for the script became the episode where Bart and Lisa go to Camp Krusty. That episode, titled Camp Krusty, was originally intended as the basis for a longer story, but the team decided to adapt it into a regular episode before the film project moved forward. Joss Whedon, the creator of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and director of The Avengers, co-wrote the script for Toy Story. During the development of the film, he helped refine the dialogue and better define the personalities of characters such as Buzz Lightyear and Mr. Potato Head. Although his work was not always publicly credited at the time, his contribution was recognized later. Once, astronaut Buzz Aldrin punched a man who approached him on the street to say that the moon landing was a myth and completely fake. Aldrin went to the moon with Neil Armstrong on the Apollo 11 mission in 1969. In 1964, a pair of Australian scientists, Isabel Joy Baer and R.G. Thomas, conducted a study to determine what causes that powerful and wonderful smell of fresh rain. They determined that it is a mixture of plant oils secreted by some plants after a dry period, bacterial spores, and ozone. Cars can travel at whatever speed they want on the Autobahn, the highway system in Germany. However, it is recommended to drive at approximately 81 miles per hour. If an accident occurs where someone was driving at a higher speed and it could have been avoided by going slower, that driver will automatically be considered at fault. Air pollution in China is so bad that it is actually visible from space. In cities like Beijing, smog levels have become so dense that they drastically reduce visibility and affect daily life. Satellite images have captured these clouds of pollution, especially during peaks of industrial emissions and heavy coal use, which has led to stricter measures to improve air quality. In North Korea, it is not the year 2026. It is the year 115 in their calendar. This is because their calendar began counting from the birth year of that country's supreme leader, Kim Il-sung, grandfather of the current leader, Kim Jong-un. Christopher Lee was the only member of the Lord of the Rings cast who had actually met J.R.R. Tolkien, the writer of the acclaimed novels. Lee had been a great admirer of the book since he was young and met the author in the 1950s. For years, he expressed his desire to participate in a film adaptation of the work. Apple orchards often rent thousands of bees along with their hives, brought in by beekeepers specifically to pollinate the flowers so fruit can grow. A couple of weeks later, the bees are collected and taken to the next orchard. According to researchers from the Donald O. Perlman Department of Dermatology at the New York University School of Medicine, the higher you are in altitude, the greater the risk of sunburn, and it is significantly higher, approximately 60% more. When he died in 1937, John D. Rockefeller's wealth was equivalent to 1.5% of the total economic output of the United States. To put that into perspective for you today, that is the equivalent of 4 times the net worth of Bill Gates at his peak. The Cars movie franchise generated $8 billion in toys and all kinds of promotional merchandise during its first 5 years, including 200 million toy cars. That is why they rushed to release sequels. It is Disney Pixar's most profitable franchise, and it seems like it was created mainly to sell toys. The Breakfast Club was going to have sequels every 10 years where the club would reunite, but the plans fell apart because Judd Nelson and John Hughes hated each other. The idea was to show how the characters had changed over time and how they faced adult life. However, personal and professional conflicts prevented the project from moving forward. When ducks are born, they adopt the characteristics of the first animal they interact with. If they see a human, they will think they are human as well and begin to behave that way. This is called imprinting. Steve Gerling, the master builder of Lego, had never touched a single Lego before starting his job. Before joining Lego, he had experience in creative fields such as design and illustration, which allowed him to quickly adapt to the use of the blocks. Over time, he developed advanced building techniques and participated in large-scale projects, creating detailed models that combine technical precision with artistic creativity. Cats are actually neither nocturnal nor diurnal, but crepuscular. This means they are more active during dawn and dusk. This evolutionary adaptation allows them to hunt when their prey is most active and the light is dim, taking advantage of their excellent vision in low-light conditions. In 2012, a man named Robert Biggs was attacked by a mountain lion while hiking. Incredibly, a bear saved his life by attacking the lion and scaring it away. The incident occurred in a forested area of North America, where both predators share territory. Although it is extremely rare for a bear to intervene in such an attack, experts believe it may have reacted out of territorial instinct, which unexpectedly benefited the hiker. Just as letters have uppercase and lowercase versions, numbers also had lowercase versions in the past, in which they were not perfectly aligned. This form of numbers is rarely used anymore due to technology, but occasionally you can still find examples in everyday life. Before becoming an actor, Bruce Willis was a private investigator. During his youth, he worked various jobs while trying to break into acting, including positions as a security guard and bartender in New York. It was while working in bars in the city that he began connecting with the entertainment world and eventually got his first opportunities on television. To gain new users, the co-founder of Pinterest, Ben Silverman, used to go into Apple stores and set all the computer's web browsers to Pinterest. He did this several times until they eventually noticed and banned him from entering. The oldest lighthouse in the world is the Tower of Hercules in Spain. It was erected in the 1st century and is still operational. Of Roman origin, it has been restored several times over the centuries to remain in service. Today, it is a World Heritage Site and continues to guide vessels along the Atlantic coast, combining its historical value with modern maritime signaling technology. A 73-year-old man named Herbert Sukernick received $17 million to move out of a rent-controlled apartment because developers needed the space to build the luxury building 15 Central Park West. This payment, made in 2005, is considered the highest ever given to a tenant to relocate in that city. Researchers at the University of Michigan have found a way to allow people to have night vision. They developed a graphene contact lens that allows users to change the type of light they see. This material is capable of detecting infrared light, which is normally invisible to the human eye, and converting it into perceptible signals. Unlike traditional devices, these lenses do not require a bulky power source, which opens the door to applications in medicine, security, and rescue in low-visibility conditions. More than 80% of the films made before 1929 are lost due to the passage of time. No copies exist. Many were recorded on nitrate film, a very flammable material that also deteriorates with the years. Fires, neglect, and the lack of interest in preserving cinema during its early years caused the disappearance of thousands of works from the silent film era. Scientists took 17 years to decipher the origin of a wave signal received by the Parkes telescope in Australia. After exploring every possible scenario, they realized it was a malfunctioning microwave oven on site that was only used to heat food. In 1996, Rowan Atkinson, portraying Mr. Bean, visited a shopping mall in Canada where he signed copies of VHS tapes with episodes for his fans. However, the situation got out of control. More than 3,000 people showed up, and Mr. Bean had to ask them not to push while staying in character. Although the event was supposed to last an hour, it had to be stopped after only 20 minutes, and Mr. Bean left escorted by a security team. People have started putting QR codes on the gravestones of their loved ones. Scanning them will take you to online tributes for the deceased, where you can read their obituaries. Technology has gone too far. In many cases, these codes also link to photo galleries, videos, and messages left by family and friends, creating a kind of interactive digital memorial. Some companies even offer personalized pages that are updated over time, allowing new generations to learn about the person's story. The Dalol region in Ethiopia is the inhabited place with the highest temperature in the world. In the hottest months, temperatures there reach approximately 114.8 degrees Fahrenheit on average. While recording the voice of the genie in Aladdin, Robin Williams frequently received calls from Steven Spielberg, who was working on Schindler's List. He would put the call on speaker so Williams could tell jokes to the cast and cheer them up a little. Spielberg later explained that the atmosphere on set was very heavy because of the film's subject, and that those brief humorous calls helped the team relieve emotional tension. Each year, the Chinese government offers 60 students full scholarships to study at universities in North Korea. These Chinese students can have much more freedom than tourists in that country. They can travel to different cities and ride the Pyongyang subway without needing to be accompanied by a guide. Some seabirds, such as the penguin, have a supraorbital gland located just above their eyes that can remove sodium chloride from their bloodstream. It works like our kidneys removing salt, which allows the penguin to survive without access to fresh water. The penguin excretes the salt byproduct as brine through its beak. When humans breathe, we only replace 15% of the air in our lungs. In contrast, when dolphins breathe, they can replace up to 90% of the air inside their lungs. These mammals have millions of years of adaptation to life in the sea. The Disney movie Mars Needs Moms resulted in a loss of $130 million, and to this day is the company's biggest failure. The strange trombone-like sound in Inception is based on a slowed-down version of a song by Edith Piaf. The idea is that the same song would sound like that in the background when a person is dreaming. Composer Hans Zimmer took the song Non, je ne regrette rien and stretched and digitally distorted it until turning it into that deep sound that repeats throughout the entire movie. Japan is one of the countries with the highest rate of adult adoption in the world. This mainly happens in families that wish to preserve their surname in companies if the biological generation is not up to the task, or if there is no successor. According to a study conducted by researchers at the Harvard School of Public Health, drinking several cups of coffee per day was associated with a lower likelihood of certain mental health problems in both men and women. The results suggested a possible relationship between moderate coffee consumption and a reduced risk. Some squirrels cure mushrooms in the same way humans make jerky. They take the mushrooms and hang them on tree branches to dry. This helps preserve them during the winter, in addition to preventing bacteria and larvae from reaching their main food storage, where they keep acorns and other nuts. April 11, 1954 is known as the most boring day in history. Literally, not a single memorable thing happened that day anywhere on Earth. No important person died. No major events occurred. And the only interesting thing that really happened that day is that nothing happened. The Sun City Palms is a cheerleading group in the United States in which only people who are 55 years old or older can join. The government of Poland awards a special commemorative medal for long marital life to couples who surpass 50 years of marriage with at least one child, whether biological or adopted. Toy Story 2 was originally going to be released directly to video, but Pixar considered the script so good that it was released in theaters. During production, the project was almost completely reworked in less than a year, forcing the team to work intensely. The result exceeded all expectations, and the movie ended up becoming one of the biggest animated hits of 1999. Actor Tom Cruise is only 5 feet 7 inches tall. Throughout his career, this has been managed with production techniques such as camera angles, special footwear, and on-set platforms to maintain visual proportions. Despite this, he has starred in major action hits, performing many of his own stunts, which has helped solidify his image as one of the most recognized figures in Hollywood. In Homer's narration in the Odyssey, the Trojan horse is mentioned only as a hollow structure, or a wooden device, without specifying its shape. It is believed that the horse may have been a mistranslation or an artistic interpretation of the event. Scotland has the most concentrated pattern of private land ownership in the entire world. Only 432 people own half of the private land there. It is like a game of Monopoly, just with more deaths. This concentration has historical roots in old feudal systems and in the so-called Highland clearances, when many communities were displaced to make way for large estates. Today, there are movements seeking to redistribute land and promote community ownership. Cats normally hate water because their fur does not insulate them well when it is wet, causing an unpleasant sensation. However, the Turkish van cat is an exception. Its coat has a unique texture that makes it water-resistant, and it enjoys swimming. The actor from the series Mr. Robot in the movie Bohemian Rhapsody, Rami Malek, has an identical twin who works as a teacher named Sami Malek. They have switched places a few times as a prank. The acronym SPQR, which was used during the Roman Empire and has been found on numerous ruins from that period and means the Senate and the Roman people in Latin, is still used today in some places, such as on manhole covers in the city of Rome. The first aircraft carrier that China had was a retired ship that belonged to Ukraine that was sold to a Chinese businessman who acquired it to turn it into a floating casino in 1998. After visiting Cambodia in 2002, Angelina Jolie purchased a large area of land in the northern province of Battambang, which was known for poaching, and turned it into a natural reserve. She was granted citizenship in response to her actions in 2005. In Marvel Comics, the most powerful mutant ever registered by the X-Men is Santa Claus, and he has appeared as a character on several occasions. The American politician Henry Kissinger was the person who convinced the great Brazilian soccer player Pelé to play in the United States. In the 1970s, during the rise of the North American Soccer League, there was an effort to popularize soccer in the country, and Pelé's arrival at the New York Cosmos helped attract international attention, increase stadium attendance, and spark interest among new generations in the sport across the United States. In 2013, a survey revealed that 91% of citizens in China supported banning the sale of shark fins for use in food and medicine. This was due to a campaign led by former NBA basketball player Yao Ming. The border between the United States and Canada is the longest border in the world, and unlike other very long borders on the planet, it does not have military surveillance. In 1956, IBM introduced its first hard drive, which consisted of 50 platters of approximately 24 inches each, with a total capacity of 3.75 megabytes. Although today thousands of times that amount of information can be stored on a card smaller than a fingernail, that hard drive was the foundation for the development of storage technology over the years. When both sides fighting a civil war in Nigeria learned that Pele would be playing in an exhibition soccer match in the country in 1967, they decided to establish a 48-hour ceasefire so everyone could peacefully watch the game before continuing the fighting. Because the cycle of evaporation, condensation, and precipitation is closed, the water that existed on Earth millions of years ago is exactly the same water you drank today. When Mozart was 8 years old, he was given a test to be accepted to perform for royalty. But first, they wanted to make sure he was not a small adult because he had too much skill for his age. They finally accepted that he was 8 years old when they saw that he stopped playing because he was distracted by a cat running through the room. Tigers are nicer than lions. Lions fight to the death over prey, but tigers that encounter other tigers while hunting often share their meals. Oh, and male tigers usually wait for females and their cubs to eat first. As you can see, chivalry is not dead. The astronomer who discovered Pluto's moon, Charon, chose the name as a tribute to his wife Charlene. Only later did he realize the fortunate connection. In Greek mythology, Charon is the one who carries the souls of the dead across the river Styx to the realm of the god of the underworld, Hades, also known as Pluto. Babies do not have the ability to taste salty foods until they are 4 months old. This happens because their salt taste receptors are not yet fully developed, and this sensitivity appears gradually as part of their growth and adaptation to different types of food. Harrison Ford suggested to George Lucas that Han Solo should sacrifice his life to save his friends in Return of the Jedi, but as we know, that never happened. Ford believed the character would have had a stronger ending with a final heroic act. Lucas decided to keep him alive because the movie was aiming for a more optimistic tone, and also because the character was one of the audience's favorites. Sea otters have the densest fur in the animal kingdom. They have up to approximately 903,000 hairs per square inch. In comparison, Humans have around approximately 1,935 hairs per square inch on the head. According to the Guinness World Records, the largest mouth in the world belongs to the bowhead whale. It can measure up to 16 feet long, 13 feet high, and 8 feet wide. Its tongue alone weighs nearly 2,000 pounds. This enormous size allows it to filter large amounts of water to feed on small organisms such as krill, using baleen instead of teeth, and it can consume tons of food in a single day during peak feeding seasons. The supermarket chain Walmart has an unwritten rule that allows owners of recreational vehicles to spend the night in their parking lots. This is permitted if authorized by the store manager, unless local laws prohibit it. Owners of these vehicles are considered among the best customers of this chain. Watermelon contains high levels of vitamin B6, so eating it can help relieve stress and anxiety. It is also rich in water and antioxidants like lycopene, which supports hydration and may contribute to cardiovascular health. Its citrulline content helps improve blood circulation, and since it is low in calories, it is a refreshing option that can support overall well-being in hot climates. Microsoft, Google, Apple, and HP, in addition to being the largest technology companies in the world, have something in common that makes them sister companies. They were all born in garages of suburban homes in the United States. Horses only sleep 3 or 4 hours each night, and they do so in 15-minute intervals. They usually do not lie down to sleep. It is dangerous to feed moose. No, do not do that. Moose that are fed by humans become aggressive if the next human does not feed them, and they may end up attacking them. Additionally, they lose their natural instinct to search for food and may get too close to roads or inhabited areas, increasing the risk of accidents. Authorities in several countries even impose fines for feeding them, as this practice alters their behavior and endangers both people and the animals themselves. The gin and tonic originated with the British East India Company in India as a way to make the taste of quinine more pleasant, which was used to prevent and treat malaria among its workers and soldiers. To soften its bitterness, they mixed it with sugar, lime, water, and gin. The fastest avalanche ever recorded in history was the volcanic explosion of Mount St. Helens on May 18, 1980. The speed reached was 250 miles per hour. This event included a massive landslide and a lateral blast that flattened entire forests in minutes, becoming one of the most studied volcanic disasters and drastically altering the landscape in a matter of seconds. The ship Santa Maria, which was the largest vessel in the fleet that took Christopher Columbus on his first voyage to the American continent, actually measured only approximately 62 feet, just slightly longer than an articulated bus. A History of Violence was the last movie to be released on VHS in 2005. By that time, the format was already practically dead, replaced by DVD and soon after by Blu-ray. For decades, VHS tapes dominated the home market from the late 1970s to the early 2000s, when the transition to digital formats became inevitable. The largest embassy in the world is that of the United States in Iraq. Building it cost $750 million, and at one point, it had up to 16,000 employees. The movie The Terminal is based on the true story of a refugee who lived in a French airport for 18 years. When they made the movie, they paid him $250,000. Cristóbal Colón de Carvajal y Gorosabel is a direct descendant of Christopher Columbus and is also Admiral of the Ocean Sea, but so far he has not discovered any new continent. A study discovered that cockroaches can experience anxiety when compared with other cockroaches. When they were made to solve difficult mazes, researchers found that they took longer if other insects were watching them. In the movie Pulp Fiction, after the famous dance contest scene, Mia Wallace and Vincent Vega are seen leaving with a trophy as if they had won, but later it can be heard in a radio announcement that the trophy was stolen. That means they did not win anything. They stole it. There is an animal called the Kashmir musk deer, or vampire deer, that was spotted for the first time in more than 60 years this past November in Afghanistan. These creatures are extremely rare because poachers sell their musklands for more money than gold. Actor Heath Ledger was very good at playing chess. He won the National Junior Championship in Australia when he was 10 years old, and among his plans was to direct a movie based on the book The Queen's Gambit, which recently had its adaptation on Netflix. In the main fight scene in the movie Daredevil, actress Jennifer Garner accidentally kicked Ben Affleck in the head with full force. It was so strong that the actor lost consciousness for a few seconds. The first hard drive Apple manufactured in 1981 was designed for use with the Apple II computer and had an impressive capacity of 5 megabytes and cost $3,500. In comparison, 1 terabyte, which is about 1 million megabytes, can be purchased today for $50 or less. The first edition of the DVD of the movie The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo was designed to look like a pirated disc with the name of the movie written in marker. This caused many buyers to return the product because they thought they had an illegal copy. The movie Borat, which came out earlier, had a similar disc design. San Francisco is the first major city in the United States to require all new buildings to have solar panels installed on the roof. The measure, approved in 2016, applies to low-rise constructions and includes solar systems or green roofs. This initiative aims to reduce emissions, promote clean energy, and decrease electricity consumption, becoming a reference for other cities that have begun to adopt similar regulations in recent years. On average, baseball games have only 18 minutes of action out of the 3 hours they last. 90% of the game consists of players standing still without moving. Luxo Jr. was the first film produced by Pixar in 1986. It was the first short film made entirely with digital animation to be nominated for an Academy Award. The short shows 2 desk lamps playing with a ball and lasts only a couple of minutes. Its success was so great that the Luxo lamp became Pixar's official logo and appears at the beginning of almost all of its movies. The budget of the movie Paranormal Activity was $15,000, but it ended up earning more than $190 million. Most of the money was used for basic recording equipment and very simple effects. Its enormous success showed that an effective story and word of mouth could turn an independent production into a worldwide horror film phenomenon. Basketball player Kareem Abdul-Jabbar made only 1 three-point shot in his entire 20-year career, during which he won the NBA championship 6 times. To this day, he is considered one of the greatest basketball players in history. Apollo 16 astronaut Charles Duke, who at that time was the youngest human in history at 36 years old to walk on the moon, left a photo of his family with the inscription, "This is the family of astronaut Charlie Duke from the planet Earth, who landed on the moon on April 20th, 1972. Stevie Nicks is the only woman who has been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame twice, once as a member of the band Fleetwood Mac, and again for her solo career. Video games can be good for children with autism because they help them practice skills such as self-awareness, flexibility, and self-control. Additionally, many games offer structured and predictable environments that make it easier to understand social rules and make decisions. Some are even designed with therapeutic goals, helping to improve coordination, communication, and problem-solving in a safe and controlled space. Hot water freezes faster than cold water. This is known as the Mpemba effect, and you have probably seen it when people throw hot water into the air in very cold weather, as it freezes quickly even before hitting the ground. The snow-covered maze in The Shining was actually built on a set without air conditioning, and it was very hot inside. To create the appearance of snow, they used materials such as foam, salt, and special movie dust. During filming, the studio lights raised the temperature significantly, so the actors had to perform wearing heavy coats while they were actually sweating. Compounds similar to coal and petroleum have been found in the universe. This suggests that complex organic compounds are not exclusive to living organisms. Stars can also create them naturally. Scientists estimate that a single ragweed plant can release 1 billion grains of pollen over the course of a single season, and they can travel hundreds of miles with a light breeze. This pollen is one of the main causes of seasonal allergies, since its particles are very light and easily inhaled. Even low concentrations can trigger intense symptoms, which explains why ragweed affects so many people during late summer and fall. In Cordia del Rio, Seville, Spain, more than 600 people have the last name Japón. This unusual surname dates back to 1614, when the samurai Hasekura Tsunenaga arrived in Spain on a diplomatic mission. Some members of his expedition stayed, and in the mid-17th century, the first baptism with this surname was recorded, referring to their country of origin. There is a tradition in Glasgow of placing a traffic cone on the head of the Duke of Wellington statue. Normally, this would just be like, haha, that is funny, except that removing the traffic cones costs an estimated £10,000 per year. Your taxes at work. A man in China bought a first-class airplane ticket with access to a luxury airport lounge. He then changed the date of his ticket up to 300 times so he could go to the lounge and have free food. By the time they discovered this, the man had already returned the tickets and received his money back. If inflation is taken into account, the highest-grossing movie of all time is the 1939 drama Gone with the Wind. Its original release attracted enormous audiences during years of theatrical re-releases. Adjusted to the current value of money, its box office revenue greatly surpasses most modern blockbusters. The reason perfume is usually applied to the neck and wrists is that these are key points that stay warm and, being exposed, can release fragrance continuously. Another ideal place to apply perfume would be behind the knees. There is an isopod called Simithoa exigua that eats the tongues of fish and then becomes the fish's tongue. This crustacean enters through the gills, attaches to the base of the tongue, and cuts off its blood supply until it atrophies. It then anchors itself in place and functions as a replacement tongue, feeding on the host's blood and mucus without killing it, making it a unique case of parasitism. When Samsung gave Galaxy S7 phones to athletes at the Olympic Games in Rio in 2016, the government of North Korea confiscated the ones that had been given to its athletes. It is believed that the same thing happened in Paris 2024 with the Z Flip 6 phones. The aquarium at the Golden Nugget in Las Vegas has a water slide also called the Shark Chute, where you can pass through the tank and see the sharks. The slide goes through a tank with real sharks and other marine species, protected by a transparent tunnel that allows a close and safe view as you go down. Nikola Tesla could perform integral calculus in his mind, which led his teachers to accuse him of cheating. He had an exceptional memory and great visualization ability, which allowed him to solve complex problems without writing them down, something that surprised even his teachers. When the budget ran out during the filming of Mad Max, the original 1979 movie, director George Miller offered his own vehicle for one of the crash scenes. That is dedication. The production was so limited that many cars used in the film belonged to members of the film crew or to friends of the production. Albert Einstein's last words were lost forever. This is because he spoke them in German, and the nurse caring for him at the time did not speak that language. The video game Perfect Dark for Nintendo 64 was going to include a feature that allowed players to put their own faces and those of their friends into the game, either as enemies or as allies using images from the Game Boy camera. However, due to development difficulties, the feature was ultimately scrapped. In 1981, 1 gigabyte of storage could cost more than $1 million. Today, thanks to the massive drop in hard drive prices, that same amount of space can cost just a few cents per gigabyte, which shows how much storage technology has become more affordable over time. All the scenes that take place inside the Matrix in the movie of the same name have a green filter. This was done to make it look like everything was happening inside a computer screen. In contrast, the scenes in the real world were filmed with bluish and gray tones to visually differentiate both worlds. The longest scientific study is the Grand Study, which lasted more than 75 years. It followed the lives of Harvard University graduates and reached conclusions such as that living with joy is just as important as living healthily and having good genes, and that the people who became the most successful were those who helped the most with household chores when they were children. Cats can suffer from something called whisker stress when eating or drinking from a bowl that is too small. Whiskers are very sensitive to pressure, and every time they touch something, a sensation is triggered in the cat. If you see your cat trying to scoop food out with its paw, it could mean it has whisker stress. Even though Singapore has a reputation for being a free market country, around 80% of Singaporeans live in apartments built by the government. The Housing and Development Board has built approximately 1 million units concentrated in 23 self-sufficient new towns that are interconnected. This unique approach has made Singapore's public housing program one of the most successful in the world. Lois Gibson is the most successful forensic sketch artist in the world. By being patient and speaking with victims, she is able to draw out realistic descriptions of suspects. At the last count, in 2007, she had helped solve more than 1,000 crimes in Texas alone over the 30 years she had been on the police force. Actress Jennifer Lawrence is related to Jeremy Renner. They are cousins or something like that, according to an ancestry test they took. Now we know why both of them have talent for shooting arrows. The 1999 to 2000 hunting season was the worst for hunters because the forests filled with enthusiastic fans of the movie The Blair Witch Project. Many people visited the forests of Maryland to search for clues related to the story of the film. The large number of visitors even forced local authorities to monitor some areas. During World War II, many candy companies donated their sugar so that lifesavers candies could continue to be produced and sent to soldiers to remind them of home. Mosquitoes can smell your blood type. They usually prefer type O. People with type O are bitten almost twice as often as those with type A. They are also guided by the carbon dioxide you exhale, body heat, and certain skin compounds that attract them. In Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, when there are shots of an asteroid field, you can see strange objects flying among the space rocks like a shoe or a potato. The special effects artists used everyday objects painted and filmed up close to create the asteroids, since it was cheaper and faster than building complex models. An American gymnast named George Iser competed in the 1904 Olympic Games with a wooden leg. Even so, he won 3 gold medals, 2 silver medals, and 1 bronze medal in events such as rope climbing, parallel bars, and horizontal bar. According to a study conducted by NASA, an astronaut's heart becomes more spherical and loses muscle mass while in space. Once they return to Earth, however, its shape returns to normal. This happens due to microgravity, which reduces the effort needed to pump blood, causing temporary changes in the heart muscle. For this reason, astronauts follow daily exercise routines to maintain their physical condition during missions. Cicadas, also known as cicadids, produce a sound that can reach the pain threshold for a human if heard at close range. It reaches 120 decibels, equivalent to standing next to the speakers at a rock concert. Stem cells may be able to extend human life. Researchers in Pittsburgh injected stem cells into white mice. Normally, their typical lifespan is 21 days, but after the injection, they lived for an additional 71 days. This is the equivalent of an 80-year-old human living to 200. Something tells me we are about to have a bit of an overpopulation problem. With today's computers, Pixar could render or process the entire original Toy Story movie in real time, or even faster. However, rendering a single frame of Toy Story 4 took up to 160 hours. This is due to the complexity of details such as textures, physics, lighting, and shadows. At the Rio 2016 Olympic Games, German athletes who won a medal were given a prize by the government consisting of all the beer they want for life. The first country to realize the situation in Chernobyl when they were trying to hide it from the world was Sweden. An engineer at one of their nuclear plants began an evacuation after stepping on grass contaminated by radioactive rain more than approximately 621 miles away from the city in what is now Ukraine. In 2006, Haoshang Hospital in Japan decorated its maternity ward with Hello Kitty-themed murals and items to help calm anxious mothers. The cartoon character appears everywhere, from the walls to blankets for newborn babies. A giant Hello Kitty figure dressed in a pink medical uniform even greets visitors in the lobby. Each year, around 12 rats enter the region of Alberta in Canada, but they are captured by animal control before they can establish themselves and multiply. Alberta is the largest rat-free region in the world. Gravity cost more than India's Mars exploration program. The film by Alfonso Cuarón, released in 2013, had a budget close to $100 million. In comparison, India's Mars orbiter mission cost around $74 million and successfully placed a probe into Martian orbit on its first attempt. Sigourney Weaver's performance in the movie Alien earned her an Academy Award nomination. This was essentially the first time a woman was nominated for Best Actress in a science fiction and action film, as women had generally only been nominated in other genres. In the 1968 movie 2001: A Space Odyssey, astronauts read newspapers and receive news on what appear to be electronic tablets very similar to iPads. Vin Diesel named his daughter Pauline in honor of Paul Walker, who co-starred with Diesel in the Fast and Furious franchise and died in a car accident in 2013. Once, the street artist Banksy set up a stand in New York where he sold his works for $60. Only 3 people bought them. Those pieces are now valued at more than $250,000. More than 60% of cigarettes in New York are smuggled in, since the law requires a high tax payment of $5 per pack. The month of July is named after Julius Caesar of the Roman Empire. It was previously called Quintilis, but when the Julian calendar was established, the name was changed because this politician was born in that month. In 2003, professional wrestler Macho Man Randy Savage released a rap album called Be a Man. When instruments such as the triangle or cymbals are played in an orchestra, there is not just one person assigned to do it. In reality, this is the job of a percussionist who must master at least 35 different instruments and whose role can change during a concert. Originally, the time machine in Back to the Future was going to be a refrigerator. The writers changed the idea because they feared children might try to climb into one after seeing the movie. They ultimately chose the DeLorean, a car with gull-wing doors that became one of the most recognizable vehicles in cinema. Will Smith once mentioned that he was grateful for not having accepted the role of Neo in the movie The Matrix, because he chose instead to star in Wild Wild West, arguing that, at the time, he was not mature enough as an actor. The customs documents that the Apollo 11 crew supposedly signed after returning from the moon were actually signed by a robotic arm weeks after they came back to Earth. These forms were part of a standard entry procedure into the country, where moon rocks and dust samples were declared as cargo. In the 15th century, King James IV of Scotland conducted an experiment in which he sent a mute woman and 2 children to a deserted island so they could learn what natural human language would be. According to him, a historian claimed that they learned to speak Hebrew, but others said they simply learned to imitate the sounds of the animals there. During a mission in the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, environmentalist sailors managed to remove approximately 44 short tons of used fishing nets that were scattered throughout that area. There is a heavy metal band in Finland whose members are dinosaurs. It is called Heavisaurus and is very popular among both children and adults. They have been performing for more than 10 years. In the movie Monsters, Inc., Randall tells Sully a legend about how humans make toilet seat covers from monster fur, but Sully takes it as a joke. However, years later in the short film Partysaurus Rex, we can see that in the bathroom of Bonnie, the girl from Toy Story 3, there is a toilet with a cover that looks exactly like this monster's fur. Very suspicious. La Petite Syrah, a wine bar and bistro in Nice, France, charges extra to rude customers. People who simply order a coffee have to pay 7.50 euros, while adding a please lowers the price to 4.25 euros, and if you say hello, a coffee please, then you only have to pay 1.40 euros. According to research, the clearest lakes can be the most polluted. This is because acid pollution, such as acid rain, eliminates plankton and microorganisms that give color to the water, leaving it without living beings. However, there are also lakes that are naturally like that. Since 2003, the Japanese town of Kamikatsu has worked to become a zero-waste community. Although its initial goal was to achieve this by the year 2020, the project is still ongoing. Currently, they recycle around 80% of their waste and separate materials into dozens of categories, becoming a global reference in sustainability and waste management. Colonel Sanders was not from Kentucky. He was actually born in Indiana. He was 62 years old and bankrupt when he opened the first Kentucky Fried Chicken restaurant, and this happened in Salt Lake City, Utah. This is Spinal Tap is the only movie on IMDb that can be rated up to 11 stars. This comes from the joke where the band's guitarist shows that his amplifiers go up to volume 11. The joke became so famous that the expression, turn it up to 11, is now used to describe something pushed to the maximum. Elephants are the animals that best understand when humans point at something. They do not just look at the hand as other species might. Dogs sometimes show understanding of this gesture as well, but they need prior interaction with humans to learn it. A giant granite ball in the Russian city of Yekaterinburg was painted to look like a giant Pokeball. Musician Pharrell Williams was fired from 3 different McDonald's restaurants when he was 17 years old because he was very lazy and took nuggets home with him. The DVD of Finding Nemo is the best-selling DVD of all time. It sold more than 40 million copies. The enormous success of the release occurred shortly after the film premiered in theaters in 2003. For years, it was an essential title in many home collections and helped establish the DVD format as the main way to watch movies at home. In the year 2000, the company Mitsubishi launched a promotion called 000, offering a car with 0 down payment, 0% interest, and 0 payments during the first year. To boost sales, many people kept the cars for only 1 year and then canceled the plan, leaving Mitsubishi with thousands of used cars worth less than what they had cost to produce. The warehouse scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark was actually a matte painting created by artist Michael Pangrazio. It took him 3 months to create it. It was painted on glass, and the live-action shots were filmed through a hole in it. The reason why photos from past decades at sporting events have a blue tint and thick haze is actually because people were allowed to smoke in indoor stadiums, which caused the smoke to concentrate and become visible under the lighting. Simo Häyhä, one of the deadliest snipers of World War II, racked up more than 500 confirmed kills. Interestingly, he preferred using iron sights instead of telescopic ones, as they allowed him to maintain a lower profile and avoid reflections that could give away his position, while also providing faster target acquisition in extreme conditions. Originally, the famous toy astronaut from the Toy Story movies, Buzz Lightyear, was going to be named Lunar Larry, but that name was discarded, and he was named Buzz after astronaut Buzz Aldrin. American writer Howard Phillips Lovecraft wrote an entire essay arguing all the reasons why cats are better than dogs. J.R.R. Tolkien served as a lieutenant during the First World War. He fought in one of the most important battles, and it has been suggested that the horrors of trench warfare shaped his later descriptions of Mordor in The Lord of the Rings. Rockefeller Center receives an average of around 470,000 people on a typical weekday, and during the holiday season, the number can approach 800,000 people per day, making it one of the busiest places in the city. The retail chain Walmart has its own private satellite communications system. Until recently, it was the largest satellite network owned by a private company, but it was surpassed by SpaceX. According to analysts of Academy Award acceptance speeches, Steven Spielberg has been thanked more times when someone receives an Oscar than God. The director has been a central figure in Hollywood since the 1970s and has produced or directed many influential films. That is why his name frequently appears in the acknowledgments of winners who worked with him. Japanese police have a special method for dealing with violent people. Officers have a special blanket that they use to wrap people who behave very badly like a burrito. This has helped reduce these behaviors in the Asian country. Less than 4% of the Earth's land has an antipode, meaning land directly on the opposite side of the planet. There are few places where you could hypothetically dig a hole of approximately 7,917 miles that would take you to the other side. In 2014, Margaret Loughrey won the Northern Ireland lottery jackpot, which amounted to $46 million, but she donated $44 million of it to her own hometown to help transform it into a tourist destination. During World War II, a dog named Smokey helped save 250 men and 40 airplanes, thanks to the fact that he managed to run a cable through a tube about 8 inches in diameter to maintain communications and electrical power. In Toy Story, in Andy's room, you can see books whose titles are actually the names of Pixar's previous short films. When the television channels change very quickly, some of these shorts can also be seen. Writing was invented independently only 3 times in all of history: in the Middle East, in China, and in Central America. All other writing systems and alphabets come from those 3, or are incomplete. The famous stop signs used for traffic control were originally many colors, but the most common was yellow. After 1954, when more durable and reflective red paint was invented, they all began to be red as they are today. Dwayne Johnson played American football for the Calgary Stampeders of the CFL in 1995, before dedicating himself to wrestling and acting. He was part of the team in the preseason as a defensive lineman, although he did not play official games and was released months later. After that stage, he decided to follow in his family's footsteps in wrestling, where he achieved worldwide fame before becoming one of the biggest movie stars. 4% of the sand on the beaches of Normandy in France is made of fragments of ammunition from the famous D-Day, which occurred during the Second World War. Director Sam Raimi had planned a cameo by Wolverine in the movie Spider-Man. Actor Hugh Jackman had even flown to New York to film the scene, but according to Raimi, it could not be done because they could not find Wolverine's costume. According to a study, people cough more than twice as often as normal at classical music concerts, and coughing increases when complex or atonal music is played. It is believed this happens because people who attend and do not enjoy the music become distracted or bored, and coughing is one of the body's natural responses, even if it is not intentional. The Parliament of Pakistan became one of the first government complexes in the world to operate entirely on solar energy. This change was part of an effort to adopt cleaner energy sources and reduce costs, and today it stands out as an early example of the use of renewable energy in government buildings. The founder of the restaurant Wendy's, Dave Thomas, was an apprentice of Colonel Sanders, the founder of Kentucky Fried Chicken. Thomas came up with ideas such as making a commercial with a rotating bucket and putting the Colonel on television, among other things. Later, he sold his percentage of the franchises he owned to found what would become Wendy's. A company in Singapore manufactured a pair of soft drinks called Anything and Whatever. Both product lines had 6 flavors each, but they had generic packaging designs, so there was no way to know what flavor was inside each can. It is a great idea, except that it was eventually discontinued in January 2010. Jurassic Park, Pulp Fiction, Forrest Gump, and The Shawshank Redemption were in theaters at the same time in October 1994. That year is considered one of the strongest in the history of modern cinema. All 4 movies eventually became highly influential classics, and over time, 3 of them were included in the United States National Film Registry because of their cultural importance. According to calculations adjusted for inflation, the construction of the Palace of Versailles cost between $200 billion and $300 billion, making this residence in France the most expensive of all time. King Louis XIV spent more than 1/3 of the entire budget just on installing fountains in the gardens. This humble residence has 700 bedrooms. Pandas, when they go to the bathroom, stand on their hands to mark their territory. They are not playing. It is something very important for them. They do this to leave their scent higher on trees, allowing other pandas to detect their presence even from a great distance. Tokyo has its own superhero. His name is Mangetsuman, a self-made hero who has taken on the responsibility of keeping the city clean. He wears a full moon head, a purple suit, oversized Ugg boots with matching gloves, and uses a voice dictation app to hide his voice. I feel like New York City needs one of those. According to a study conducted by the University of New South Wales, good manners go a long way. The study found that making an extra effort to say thank you makes people see you as someone with greater interpersonal warmth. It can also make you a happier person. Centipedes cannot actually have 100 legs. They have 2 legs per body segment, but they always have an odd number of segments. Therefore, there are centipedes with 98 and 102 legs, but not 100. Manuel de Oliveira was the oldest active film director in the world until before his death in 2015. His first movies date back to the silent film era. Born in 1908 in Portugal, he continued directing movies even after turning 100 years old. His final work premiered when he was more than 105 years old, making him a unique figure in the history of cinema. In the first quarter of 2024, the total hours played in the video game Roblox reached more than 17 billion. This equals more than 1.7 million years of combined playtime in just 3 months. During that same period, the company reported more than $800 million in revenue. In Japan, golf enthusiasts buy insurance to protect themselves in case they get a hole-in-one, because if they do, they have to organize a party. The insurance covers an event of up to $3,000. Thanks to efficiency in the manufacturing process of the Ford Model T automobile, which was constantly improved, its price dropped from $829 in 1909 to $260 in 1925. Mark Hamill is the actor who has portrayed the Joker for the longest time. He began voicing him in the animated Batman series in 1992 and has played him many times since in other series and movies. If you were to drop a steel ball and a rubber ball of the same size from the same height, the steel ball will bounce higher because it regains its original shape faster than the rubber ball. The first commercial logo ever registered was that of Base Beer in England on January 1, 1876, just after the trademark law was approved in the United Kingdom. The emblem, which is a simple red triangle, has remained practically unchanged since then, becoming an icon of graphic design. Cats' kidneys are so efficient that they can survive on a diet of only meat without additional liquids or can hydrate themselves by drinking seawater directly. However, neither of these things is recommended. They can do it, but they should not. Most beverages you buy in stores contain a small amount of alcohol. This is due to the natural fermentation of sugars and flavorings, but the amount is so small that it does not cause any reaction.
If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it and share it with your friends. Subscribe so you don't miss more interesting content. Leave your comments and click on any of these videos. See you next time.